So I'll start off, as some of you may be aware, we have a large firm dedication to the subject of urbanization, both in India and globally. In fact, we have a full team led by some very senior partners who, exclusively focus on the subject of urbanization and how cities are going to change over the next 20, 30 years. I think we also have some iPad apps which deal on the subject, and you can click on any city and figure out what the growth is going to be over the next few years. You can visit the Mckinsey app store in the Apple store, and you'll get some very interesting tools that you can use. So this is just a very quick extract from that. I think the subject is so vast that we could probably spend days discussing it. I just thought I'll capture some few insights that at least struck me in terms of the magnitude of the challenge that faces us as far as urbanization is concerned, and how it's going to get compounded. And if we don't act proactively right now, it is really going to be a big bottleneck as far as our growth aspirations are concerned. In the last couple of years, we've seen how the growth rate has dropped from, say, 9-10%, which we were thinking of as the base case scenario, to closer to 5 to 6%. And one of the key challenges, really, one of the things that's talked about very extensively in this context is the supply side constraint. Right? What's really happening is that the demand, which is inherent in the economy because of the population growth and the income growth, runs up against a supply bottleneck, which basically means that output is constrained. And when you have excessive demand with an output constraint, what you will have is inflation. That's basically what we've been witnessing over the last couple of years, right? And when you say supply constraint, what does it really mean? It means broadly two things: policies, the ability to do business, and infrastructure, right? And in the Indian context, infrastructure, of course, you have ports and highways, which have relatively little to do with cities, but you also have urban infrastructure. That's the biggest bottleneck, at least as I see it, in terms of our whole growth story. So this is just not one important topic. I think it is the most important topic as far as the next 10 years growth is concerned. And it's not only about growth, it's also about how we live, right? Because most of us live in cities, and we would like to make our cities as livable as possible. So in this analysis here, what I've pulled out is basically how we measure up with China in terms of our past urbanization and how it will look going forward. So if you look at this number, which basically analyzes the urbanization rate or the urban-rural divide from 1990 to 2005 and 2005 to 2020. Clearly, there is an inflection point here, somewhere in the late 2000s, early 2010s. We are looking at an inflection point wherein from 26 to 29 is what we, the rate, the percentage of urban population between 1990 and 2005. And that will now go up to 37, right? So it's a big, if you look at the past 15 years and the next 15 years, it's like 3% to something like 6% or 8%. So it's a big jump. And it's kind of comparable to what China went through, right? 1990s when China opened up its markets and started reforming. And if you look at the urbanization that happened between 1990 and 2005 in China, it's 27 to 41, 13%, right? Which is very similar to what we're looking at in the next 10 years. So we've had a lot of urbanization in the past, but we're only now beginning to see that inflection point where there's a mass migration towards the cities, right? And if we don't manage this well, then we're looking at a very, very serious problem. The other thing is how the story is slightly different, as compared to China. If you look at China, the urbanization has really come at the expense of rural population. So what's really happened is that the population has been relatively constant or, with minimal growth, but a lot of the rural population has migrated to the cities. Whereas in India, rural population is also growing, urban population is also growing, but urban population is growing at a higher rate because of the basic population growth plus the migration, right? So what does it mean? It means that in China, let's say the base was not different. So that it was not a question of allocation of resources between the rural part of the country and the urban part of the country. In India, both are going to be challenges. So not only is your urban population going to go up, your rural population is also going to go up. And that has implications for resource allocation, which is, to my mind, one of the fundamental issues in urbanization is to what extent cities are empowered to manage the resources that the cities generate, which we will come to in the next few pages. But I thought this was a very startling insight and something that has relevance for the whole urbanization story. If you look at South India specifically, we've just kind of mapped out the states in terms of the intensity of urbanization. And you'll see that, there's basically there's a small state effect. Some of the smaller states are going to have huge urbanization. There is also a base rate effect in terms of states which have relatively low income, which will see more and more urbanization. But even in the 4 southern states which are relatively well off economically, where we are right now, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala, are both going to have pretty intense urbanization phenomenon going forward.